You were recently acquitted on those charges of soliciting a bribe for a major government fleet management contract. How does it feel to have those damaging charges off your shoulders? Maybe if you can take us through the entire experience, what it was like for you, and how does it feel to be finally free?
Well, it's a bittersweet experience because 5 years of my life was wasted. You know, when you have a case hanging over you, a simple thing, when you apply for a visa, you have to write, have you ever been convicted of this, or are you in court because of this and this? And for 5 years I could not go anywhere, and that was very hurting. You know, my daughter was going to school in the UK. I couldn't take her there. She had to fly solo. When she finished 2 years later, I couldn't go for her graduation because I did not want to write something that is not true on the form. Because once I do that, they will look it up in the in the media, Google me, and then the first thing they find, accused of soliciting a bribe, accused of all sorts of things. So 5 years, I couldn't even get a job. You know, I had left government in 2017 when I first appeared in court. And because our party was out of power and there were a lot of other people being engaged, you sometimes look for things to do, consultancies here, look for international jobs. None of them came through, even those that I knew. This one I really qualified. So it has been 5 long wasted years for me personally. And I say it's bittersweet because I did not get my day in court. I had really wanted this thing to be heard in court so that I could prove my innocence. The judge even said that when he acquitted her, he said, you know, it would have been better for you to have gone through the process so that you can come out like out of jig clean. But it's like you are acquitted on a technicality, but the fact is, yes, it might be a technicality, but it is an acquittal anyway, because those people failed to prove their case in court.
So to you, what does it say? This is a state institution, the DCEO, which was behind the charges.
Yes.
High profile as you are, this is what you are having to go through, and eventually there is no case that they are able to bring to the courts. Do you think that the DCEO is doing its job properly, or some would even say that it is actually weaponized against opponents of whoever would not be in government at the time?
Yes.
What do you think about it, and what do you think needs to be done to ensure that it actually does its job of investigating
DCEO has now become a political wing of something. They are not dealing with cases professionally. The judge even said, you know, these allegations came up in 2016 and they said they had a case there. They didn't send me to court because I was a minister then, right? Immediately I got out of government, that's when they started. And DCEO is notorious for losing cases. All these high profile cases. They lost Ndadeta Hani's case. They lost this one. You know, you can go back and investigate and you'll find which cases. But once they put you through that mill, you're on your own. You're on your own. So if I could, I would sue them, not because I need their money, but just to show that they are evil.
So maybe in connection with that, there are the new mobile subscriber regulations which have been passed very recently. And in terms of those mobile subscriber regulations requiring people to register their SIM cards, state security agencies can access information via a court order. If they need anybody's information for investigation of crimes, they can access it via a court order. But the DCEO is an exception. All that is required is for the Director General of the DCEO to write to the mobile subscriber companies requesting individuals' information without a court order, so long as they say they are investigating a possible crime or possible corruption. Do you think it is proper then, given your own experiences with the DCEO, should they not also go through the court process?
To be honest, I haven't read the finer details of that SIM registration thing and how to access it. But I thought everybody would fall in that, because as it is at the moment, DCEO, when they interrogated me for 5 solid hours, they knew everything about my accounts. And I said to them, I'm sure you have never seen such a poor minister, because all you can see in my accounts is my salary, nothing else. You looked everywhere, you went through my emails, and you found nothing incriminating, nothing. So I totally agree it is wrong for them to be exempted. If the police have to get a court order, why can't DCEO be asked to do the same thing? No, I really haven't seen that. But now that you have mentioned it, I will look at it and push those who have the power to do that, to look at amending that. It is very wrong.
So, as the finance minister at the time, maybe you've been cleared of these issues, the charges, and of course you were dying to have had your day in court to set the record straight. Probably you would have then explained what actually transpired. Maybe for the purposes of our readers and for the purposes of the nation at large, what actually took place, what transpired leading up to the awarding of that contract, and yes, how was it done?
No, but you know what I was being charged for? Somebody soliciting a bribe, not even me. Somebody who was supposedly close to me solicited a bribe of 4 million so that the people that he was asking the bribe from could have my ear to get the tender. So you see, I was not even the one being accused of soliciting a bribe. They say in their papers, in their affidavit, that I was there when he was soliciting this bribe and I said nothing. I mean, if you are talking amongst yourself and say, hey, maybe we should get this money from ABC, from DC, from that. If I don't say anything, am I complicit? But anyway, so that was the charge. The charge was not that I had fraudulently awarded a contract to Bidvest, no. Because that was done through a cabinet decision. I did not just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to give Bidvest. And the history of this car rental thing goes way, way back, from Imperial to Avis, and then to Bidvest, and now I don't know, to Fleet Africa, or whoever is doing the fleet now. Avis was holding government to ransom. And the reason is that some of the shareholders of Avis were ABC members. And they knew that their time was coming to an end, and they were playing dirty tricks. Sometimes they just take cars, and the agreement was that if you take a car, a minister's car or the prime minister's car, you give them a replacement car. They wouldn't do that. The prime minister would go for days without a car, a vehicle, because Avis has not supplied the courtesy car. So it was becoming untenable. And because they knew that we did not have a lot of time, they wanted an extension by default. So I said, no, let's cut this chase. And we cut it off. And then when we got Bidvest for the short term, and people were accusing me that the short term was expensive. And I said, of course, even if you go to a car rental, if you rent a car for a whole month, you'll get a better deal than if it's for a week or a few days. So that's why the 6 months was expensive. But when we got into the long-term contract, the rates were down. I remember I even gave a press conference showing the actual rates to say, this is what we are paying Imperial, this is what we are paying Avis, and this is what we are going to pay Bidvest. But because this thing had nothing to do with the car rental scheme, but it was a political ploy by the Demileliki, people just ignored the facts. And those people who were accusing us of bribery and manipulation and so on, those so-called Libelonyani people, when you look at them, the actual directors of that company were not in that court case, right? If you go to the Ministry of Trade portal website, you can check who are the directors of Libelonyani. You will find Matikani Khadi, you'll find Magida, you'll find somebody Mutelezan and somebody else, 4 people. But when you look at the people who were in the forefront in the case, there was Lizatzi Mabon. He was not a director of the Bilonia. He had, I think, used a relative because there was somebody with the same surname in the directors. But when the chase came for somebody who would go and appear in court, it was Lizatzi Mabon. And the other witnesses also were not the real directors. So there was that thing. And all of those people, when the Demoleleki formed AD, they left DC and went to AD.
So why do you think, you are saying it was a political ploy? It was a political ploy by people then within the DC. Ndademoleleki was the deputy leader of the DC.
But already the vibes, you could tell that he's on his way out.
Mm-hmm. So what was the ploy in aid of? Why couldn't he just leave the party and form his own party?
Ask him. I don't know, he wanted, I think he was too eager to become the leader at that point.
So you think this whole case was used as a ploy to drum up support for the
Yes.
party and discredit the DC?
Yes.
Okay. So, but even the Auditor General at some point they spoke about, she spoke about the tender itself and was saying that it was grossly inflated. What's your take on that? Eventually the tender itself was then terminated. What's your take on that? If you were to be in government again, would you do it all over again? Definitely.
Because it was well thought out. You know, the agreement had been, if government needs 600 vehicles, to start with, provide us with 400 vehicles, and we'll take 200 vehicles from Basotho. As time goes on, you reduce your fleet, and we increase the fleet of Basotho. Because we are giving people an opportunity to acquire vehicles that they can now lease on a long term to government. But because we know that banks will not readily give you credit to buy a vehicle unless you had, a contract with government that government will hire your vehicle. We knew the statistics. So it was eventually going to be that at the end of the whatever period, Bidvest would have gone out and more Basotho would have come in. So the Auditor General's report, I don't know if it was in relation to this particular thing, or it was in relation to what happened when the 4x4 government came into place. Are we talking of the same report? If that is the case, I would have to look at it. But I was looking at the auditor's report where she was talking about the 4x4 thing where they hired vehicles from their people. But I don't want to comment beyond that. But if it was inflated, then she would have to go back to my statement that I made that showed why this is an affordable contract.
Okay. Yeah, you do, in passing, you did talk about suing, probably been suing the DC for what they put you through. At some point, you were suing your accusers. Is that so?
No, I wrote a letter of demand to Dijobo and Chafota, because they had gone out of their way to call a press conference and they had a very big statement about this and about me and so on and so on. So that was just a personal attack. So that's why I had said to them, I'm going to sue you for 6 million for defamation. Yes.
So what happened?
Well, before that process got in, because Ndadedele had written to them a letter, before that could take traction, that's when DCEO then sued me. So, I might still chase them.
Back to your being put on trial, was it fair to single you out?
No.
Why do you think you were singled out?
You know what? I think this whole thing was a political thing, and probably they were looking who of these ministers is the most vulnerable or an easy target. Because as I say, there was a committee of ministers that was dealing with this
Awarding of the contract.
awarding of the contract. Minister of Finance, Minister of Public Works, Minister of Law, Minister of Planning, Minister of something else. I don't remember. There were 5 of us. Public Service. Now, when this comes to trial, it's only me. And I asked them, why are you suing me and not in the MCC? Because the decision was made by Cabinet, and he's the chair of Cabinet. You have the Cabinet minutes before you, where I, as the chair of that committee, had to present a paper in Cabinet. When you present a paper in Cabinet, it is now a Cabinet decision. Everybody agrees that this is our decision as Cabinet. So go and sue at MCC. I told them, DCEO, I said, no, you're suing the wrong person. Go and sue the Prime Minister.
This contract also caused friction within your own party, the DC. Why would your own comrades turn against you?
No, because they were already planning to leave DC to form AD. That's why I said, even those people who were in that Libelonyane cluster, and Dijobo and Chafotza and everybody else, they left and went to DC. So it was really more of a political, to AD. So Ndade Muleleki was fighting his battles, and he found a way and said, okay, let us use this avenue. Maybe there could have been other avenues, but that is being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So you obviously, even from the regalia, it's a clear indication that you are still within the structures, very much within the structures
DC.
of the DC. Yes.
We call Friday DC Friday, so everybody dresses black and red DC. But yeah,
So,
I am.
So in what capacity right now?
No, just an ordinary member.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A card-carrying member of the DC. I had my time. I had 6 years, if not more, as treasurer, and I said, well, you know, sometimes you have to give way. There was nothing I could, if I went for elections, I would still have won. People are still complaining, but that's off the record. So I just decided not to run for elections into the executive in 2019. Yes.
Okay. So just an ordinary card-carrying member. Do you have any hopes of standing for election in the...
No. You know what? I told the MCC, I said, the MCC, if I lose election twice, I will no longer stand for elections. And I'm true to that. Why would people not elect you the first time? Maybe you didn't do something right. They don't elect you the second time. Third time, no, I don't believe in third time lucky. So it was a conscious decision that if I do not get elected on 2 consecutive times, so be it. So I'm not going to stand for elections anymore.
But don't you think that may be the decision? Because one of the things that comes out, even if you look at the 2017 elections, there was a decrease in the number of women making it to parliament compared to the previous elections. Don't you think you are sending out the wrong example to women by leaving the arena, as it were? Yeah.
No, but there are certain principles, you know. You can't say just because I'm a woman I'll keep on trying until something gives in. No, there's still a lot of strong women within the DC who will still win elections. Chloe, for example, the current Minister of Tourism, the MP for Mount Moros is a woman. So we still have women within DC who should be able to carry us through. So
you've been in the party under 2 leaders. what would you say about the leadership styles from its formation?
What has that got to do with the trial?
No, I get now we're done with that. We
are just talking about
okay, the party in general.
I don't want to talk about my new boss.
Okay. How do you
okay,
see
still on that? Now the elections are around the corner. How do you think the DC will perform this time?
Up until Muruo came into the picture, DC was miles ahead. That's my honest opinion. We were like running. With them in, the balance is now shifting a little bit. So I still see another coalition government. DC will be in it unless they do what they did to us in 2017. We had the most number of seats, but then they
2012.
I'm sorry, 2012, yes. But then they clubbed against us and came up with the 61 needed for government. So that might happen again. I hope not. But DC, my honest opinion is that it will have a sizable number of constituencies.
And will still be part of government, therefore.
Oh yeah, unless, like I'm saying, they will gang up against us again. If ABC, Moruo, whoever, BNP, I don't know, AD, if it will still be there.
You talked about 5 years of your stolen life. Now that you have been cleared, where do you start rebuilding your life?
That's a good question. I'm 62 now. I should be retiring and enjoying my life, but I have to find a way of living. Because if you have not worked for 5 years, how do you pay your bills?
Yeah.
So I'm going to look around and see. I'm still useful. I'm more useful than people half my age. Honest, I go to the gym sometimes and I see these 30-year-olds and they're like, these ones.
And during the course of those 5 years, how did you deal with all the criticism that was thrown your way?
Or even your children as well. Because remember, part of the thing is, apart from yourself, you have family.
Yeah.
How do they, what is the life of a public figure, like particularly when all these issues come up?
Social media is very damaging to children. I could handle it, but then when my daughter reads, oh, by the way, mommy, I can see here they say this about you, what's the story? Then you have to start explaining, and she's like, that's why I hate politics, so dismissive. But I must say I've had a lot of support from my family, my brothers, my sisters, colleagues, cousins, and so on. So social media can make or break you. But I think I have a very thick skin in response to your question to say how I survived. I decided that I will not give these people the glory to see me broken and dirty, and people are thinking, are you still working? Are you? So I had to maintain a certain level of livelihood without getting myself in trouble. So I have a farm, I plant my beans there and I sell them. Next year I plant this, and then I raise pigs, which are things that I had been doing before, even during my time as a minister. So those kept me busy to make sure that I visit the farm, I go there, spend the day doing whatever is being done there. So I just think I have a thick skin.
And while all that was happening, did you believe that justice would be served one day?
I knew. That's why I was saying I was annoyed that we didn't go to court, because those people had no they had no case. You know, when we started, people were saying, oh, you are in front of Judge Makara. Do you think he's going to be a fair judge? I said, give me any judge, I don't care. The thing is, I know that I am not guilty of any wrongdoing. So whoever is there as the judge, if they are true to their calling, they will not find me guilty. So I was never worried about whether justice would be served or not. No.
Legally, in terms financially, what was the impact? Obviously, you'd have lawyers involved.
Oh, you know your lawyer, you call them and say, hey, when are we going to court? Next time you're in his office, you'll see your client called 50 rand.
Yeah, that's how it is.
You know? So I don't even want to go there. I spent so much money. He still has to send me the final bill. So you'll probably have to sell more newspapers and give me something. No, it has been very taxing financially, I must say.
So you are up against a DCEO, which is, what have you to say to that? You are, presumably you are using your
my
own
own money,
and they are dipping into the bottomless, so to speak, state coffers. What, in view of that, is there anything that you think needs to be done to the DCEO, to the police, basically the authorities? Because as your case, imagine somebody who didn't have the little that you were having as a minister, how they would have probably tackled this from a legal perspective. But what needs to be done? Would you say that they are abusing their power? If so, what needs to be done to clamp on that particular abuse so that they don't target individuals and probably some people end up suffering financially as you did, because they are dealing with the behemoth which has got access to a bottomless pit of state funding?
You see, they even brought a South African prosecutor, Volker, is that his name? Volker. Yeah. And the man would come, know that he's going to ask for a postponement, but he's paid to come from the Eastern Cape, come to Lesotho State, Lesotho San, appear before the judge and say, oh, by the way, can you give us an extension because we need to do 1, 2, 3. So they've been postponing like that, and he was being paid, and I was paying from my own pocket, and he was getting paid from my taxes, because the government money comes from my taxes. So that's very annoying. And I think DCEO should be reined in that. They should have a limit to say, you do not spend more than this on any case. You know, a small case like that, and I don't know how much they've spent, but we could find out how much they've paid Volker, how much they've paid Lesotho San, how much they paid his transport to get here. You'll find that it is a lot of money that could have been put to good use. And it's just watered down the drain because there's no conviction. So how can they justify that? So maybe because it's supposed to be an independent institution so that it can prosecute without fear or favor. Then I think the Minister of Law would even be scared to rein them in. But there should be some limits to say, okay, on any particular case, you can only spend this much. If you need to spend beyond that, let it be in consultation with the Minister of Law or the Minister of Finance. Because really, for 5 years, this man was being paid. I'm sure even when they were consulting him, he was charging them. You know, they would call from here and send him emails and whatever. So he was being paid even when he was not appearing in court. He actually withdrew from the case.
Is the DCEO, you say it's supposed to be an independent institution, but is it really independent?
No.
To discharge its mandate effectively?
That's what I said earlier. I said, no, DCEO is in somebody's pocket. I don't know who. And it's very unfair because it was established on very high moral ground when the DCEO was established. And the very first director was a very well-known, astute gentleman, and you thought,
Who was that, sir?
that Lishile Twahlan, he had been Minister of Finance, he had been an ambassador, he had been, he was a man of good standing. So you'd have expected that from there it would only go this way. But no, DCEO. I'm not saying that just because I'm aggrieved because they charged me, but in general, if you look at what they've done, if you could do some sort of research to say, DCEO, over the years that you have been in existence, how many cases have you prosecuted? How many have you won? How much money have you recovered? You'll find that it is more money going out into DCEO than money coming into government. So I have my doubts.
Some would say it has to do perhaps within the manner in which the Director General is appointed. Because one of the things that we've noted is that each time there's a new government, it almost also follows that there's a new DCEO. There are always charges. We saw that Evoroto going out, and then that Manyukule coming in, and when the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister came in, that Manyukule was also on the back foot. So what needs to be done there?
But you see, it's a thing that not only happens with DCEO, it happens with the police.
Yeah.
It happens with a lot of other positions that are of that nature. Statutory. So who knows?
No, thank you.